Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Bridge. Hello, Casper. Nice to see you today.
Nice t-shirt you've got there, Gary.
Of course, yeah. Not quite available yet, but you never know in the future.
Flying the flag. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you've got to get the teasers out there, to get people intrigued.
That's right, yeah. Today, welcome back, Chandra. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you, Gary and Casper, for having me.
It's a pleasure. Really nice to see you again.
So, on that note, Casper, what is it today? Reiki, I believe?
Well, what a spoiler. So, yes, we're welcoming Chandra back today to talk about Reiki. And what is it for those that don't know? So I'm sure we'll go through that fairly quickly. And then the aspects of how that sort of came into Chandra's frame of reference, and then how that becomes integrated actually into your life and as part of your overall journey, and what that means for yourself and people around you. So Chandra, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, would you start by giving some form of overview as to what you see, at least, as Reiki as being?
Sure. So if you're a practitioner who, practices Reiki, or if you get Reiki done yourself, people usually know what Reiki is or what it feels like. If you haven't, there's a lot of people. I was one of those people years ago that I heard Reiki and heard that it's great for clearing energy, but I had no idea what that really meant. So Reiki has been around for thousands of years, really. And all it is clearing out any stuck energy, any emotional energy that might get stuck within your body. And, not to get too technical for anyone that's not aware, but along your vagus nerve, there are energy points. And those energy points, are referred to as chakras in some cultures. Some cultures, they're referred to just the vagus nerve energy points of just constant flow up your spinal cord. And when energy gets stuck in any of those spots, it can cause other things, other issues with organs, or tiredness, depression, anxiety. And so to be able to clear out that energy through the Reiki process can be helpful. So Reiki is, you can do touch Reiki or no touch Reiki. And it's really having a trained practitioner have their hands above you or lightly on you and pull out any of that negative energy that might be stuck. Does that help clarify?
I was just going to say, do we think, is this similar principles to maybe acupuncture, or just completely different, we think?
Very similar. Acupuncture is, obviously with needles, and it goes along the meridian lines. And so what an acupuncture specialist would follow meridian lines that are connected to that stuck energy. So it's absolutely very similar. You can get the same benefits through acupuncture, acupressure, and Reiki is just really another form of that.
Good. And without the needles, which I hate. So
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
So just in terms of this energy, is this energy also the sort of chi energy and the energy field that people talk about, a bit like the force, really, being around and permeating everything, all maybe living and non-living things? Or is this, when you're thinking of Reiki, more to do with a sort of intrinsic energy that's only operating in and around a human body and the human body's energy field?
Yes. So I would categorize it as the internal energy within the body itself and the energy that is coming off of the body in the energy field. Our heart they just proved, has the most electromagnetic waves that it gives off, more than any other organ. And so I forget the diameter, but there's a certain radius that the heart energy actually puts off. And so if there are stuck emotions that are affecting the heart area, that energy can be put off, outwardly as either positive or negative. And, that translates into vibrations too, which is a whole nother conversation for another time. But to give you a little backstory, if I could, when I first heard of Reiki, I was going to get a massage, and this was many, many years ago. I had lost my second child, and I was having a hard time coping with some of the grief. My first daughter was 2.5 at the time. And I thought I just needed to go get a massage to de-stress, to relax, just kind of have a little me time. So I did that. When I went to get a massage, the masseuse asked me if she could do some Reiki on me as well. I had never heard of Reiki. I'm like, sure. So she did a Reiki session. It was about 20 minutes long. And as soon as she got to my heart area, I felt this intense pulling from my heart area. And I immediately thought I was going to have a panic attack. My breathing got a little shallow and I just started sobbing. I could uncontrollably crying, like it was the day that my second daughter had died. All those things came surfacing back immediately, which was really uncomfortable in that moment. However, when I sat up, I'm like, what did you just do? What was that? And so she started explaining, if I had any trauma, which I did, and explaining how sometimes we think we have dealt with grief and we feel like we have overcome something. We might be coping with it and dealing with it and going through our lives, but some of the energy is still stuck in our body. And I felt that release. But it wasn't just in that moment. Even over the days and the weeks after that session, things started to surface and things that I suppressed started coming to light. And I would cry and then I would feel better. And then I just felt lighter. I felt like all of it was just surfacing and I was really able to fully cope with the grief. And so I went back for multiple sessions with the same masseuse afterwards and the same Reiki specialist. And I can tell you now, like it was life-changing as far as just really getting all of that unleashed. Does that make sense? It's
incredible story.
Super powerful.
Yeah, thank you for being so open. I mean, I didn't realize we were going to go into territory like that. That's incredible. And were you feeling that this was working at the time and those subsequent visits physically and sort of somehow physically on the heart, or did this feel very much an energetic thing, or did this feel a blend? Is it for your experience at least, and then going forward, I realize you'll come on to touching on this, but does it feel like an amalgamation of those two things happening together, or is it very much an energetic thing rather than physical, or there is some physicality? Because I'm not experienced in this territory.
I think it's a blend for sure. I think it's that whole package of the mind, body, and spirit, and really tapping into that and feeling it physically. During that time too, I was also having some somatic things that I was, just putting off, like back pain or, achiness or some malaise. And when I went through the whole Reiki process, all of that disappeared. I no longer had back pain. I didn't have headaches. I didn't have the malaise. So the physicality of it really helped with that also.
So something happening as life-changing as that, and that transformation and transition that you were able to go through, did the penny immediately drop that you wanted to share that sort of thing with the world and maybe you could do this? Or at the time, was it just, I'm glad I've found somebody who was able to help me release this type of trauma?
That's a really good question. So I underwent my own Reiki, like I said, multiple times. And then I wanted to become specialized in Reiki. So I started the courses, and I have yet to get my level 2 certification, but it's in the works. For now, I've been working as a guinea pig with my children, which is kind of funny. My 8-year-old son, he had nightmares when he was about 6-7 years old. And so I started experimenting with some Reiki on him. And I've always been able to kind of pick up on energy and been more of an empath. So I think I'm kind of in tune to that already. But knowing the actual practice, I started doing Reiki on him every single night. And I could feel the heat coming from his lower abdominal area, which is the fear center. And a lot of kids who have nightmares will hold their emotions there. And I don't know why, but more so boys than girls. Girls typically hold it in their heart, boys in their lower abdomen. And every night when I would do this, I would feel that heat coming from his abdomen area. And the nightmares went away. No more nightmares. And now that he's 8, he still asks me to do that hand thing on him every once in a while because he said he sleeps better. And I think he does. And I started doing it with my daughter, who's now 12, and I would feel it from her heart area because she holds up some emotions. And she has told me numerous times that she feels lighter afterwards. And you can tell, like, just her way she carries herself, and she likes it. Seems like it's working. I mean, they were very skeptical, like, what are you doing, mom? But
Brilliant. Yeah.
that's with you.
Mhm.
But so to answer your question, I started doing it so I could work with family members, and I do Reiki on myself now periodically just to kind of keep my own energy clear.
And is it sort of a never-ending journey of learning and discovery, or are there points at which you sort of things might level out? Maybe you're not quite at that level to look back and know that yet, but do you feel that this is it something that takes years to get to a level of mastery, or can you, if you certainly have a predisposition for it, is it something that you can actually tune into and pick up fairly quickly as a practitioner?
Good question. I think it depends on the person. So how much you practice it, what, how in tune the person is already. But I do feel like it's an ongoing process because people change developmentally. We're always changing and learning and evolving. So what might, be of an issue one day may not be of an issue the other day. So it's really just keeping that open mind, I think, and learning as you go and building upon what you learn, because it's kind of never ending.
I've got a lot of questions around this, but Gary, would you mind because I know I'll cut into your time.
That's all right. I've only really got one or two, so that's good. I'm just wondering, from a practitioner sense, is it all just feeling, or can you see blockages and things as well? Or is it just by the hands?
Are you referring to like auras or energy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this because it can sometimes Casper, you can see some things. You see, it's not because I said I was going to go and have some. So I'm going to go and try this, this Reiki stuff. And then he was looking at me and he said, "You might find you got something around the throat area, some kind of blockage." And then when I came back, I said, "You was right." So maybe he just got lucky. I don't know.
So you did.
Probably. Let's go with that.
Let's go. But yeah, I'm just wondering if, like as a practitioner, if it's sort of a bit of both, or is it just on the sensations?
I think it's a little bit of both, and it depends, I think, how skilled that practitioner is. I feel like I can see some stuff sometimes, not all the time. I think it depends on my frame of mind and the person as well. But that's interesting you said, the throat area, because that's that's a big point of reference. And I know it was one area that was blocked for me for quite a while, just of having free speech and feeling like I had to swallow my words at times, and getting that cleared out.
Yeah, I thought this would help, but it hasn't yet. But well, let's just go for it. And yeah, it still feels a little bit more work needed, maybe. But
yeah, it's certainly a process. I don't feel like we're ever done. I feel like it's constant, right? It's not like a one and done where you just go and get acupuncture one time or acupressure one time or a massage one time and your back feels great forever. I think it's same thing. The Reiki is an ongoing process where you kind of have to constantly clear the energy out because we're always getting bombarded by things in our environment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can describe it. Can you, if there's a blockage? I mean, is it something you just feel? Or?
That's a good question, and it's actually coming up a lot in my classes I'm taking right now, in natural and integrative medicine, and it's based on quantum physics, the program that I'm doing right now. So a lot of it goes into, and this is a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day.
Well, we'd love to, by the way. Yeah.
It goes into the physical ailments that can derive from blocked energy, down to a microbiological level of cancer cells, of, heart issues, high blood pressure. And they've done studies on actually blood under a microscope, which I will share. It's really cool. Where a person that's getting Reiki in a room and they look at blood under a slide, and the blood originally looks thicker and more coagulated. And then when the person is getting this energy clearing in Reiki, the blood thins out and is much more fluid and much more translucent in color. So it's able to travel through the body at a much better rate and has more oxygen in it. So it's healthier in general. So if you think of all that stuck energy kind of like clogging up a hose, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Go on then, Casper.
Okay. While we're still in this sort of, or at least partly in this 3D money-centric paradigm that we appear to have found ourselves in, maybe by the time this goes out, that will all be gone, and we'll all be, levitating around and manifesting everything and anything we like. But until that point, is it prohibitively expensive, Chandra, to become a Reiki practitioner?
No, there's online courses, and then you just need to find someone who can give you the hands-on experience.
Right.
So it's time consuming, but I wouldn't say it's pricey financially.
And coming back to that point, that was going to be my follow-up point. I take it these days, so many things are online, but is it essential, or at what point might it become pivotal to have somebody else actually involved? I know that you came to Reiki via having the Reiki treatment, so that was a sort of hands-on experience in itself. But for those people who might watch this and think, actually, I do feel a slight sort of pull or predisposition towards this, is there at some point, or is it early on, that they need to get that sort of hands-on experience of what it is, or can that come later? You may not know, but I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it depends on the person, and that could come later. I know kids that I work with, even, that are pretty in tune to other people's emotions. And it's kind of funny because a lot of the teenage girls that I work with, they have a hard time separating their thoughts from their emotions because they take on other people's emotions, like an empath. And so they are really good candidates for this because they already have that ability. They just need to learn how to separate those two so they don't take on other people's emotions.
Nice.
And I know other people. Oh, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say, and it's just an aside as well, I'd love to talk about the quantum area with you at some point at more depth, but actually this area of being empathic or empath, obviously Gary has that disposition or ability and whatever, clearly you do as well. For somebody who maybe, I don't want to say I'm entirely not that, but for somebody for whom it doesn't seem to be such a prevalent force in their life, maybe we can do that at some point. Maybe you can think about, because it seems to me that this sort of empathetic sort of feeling and gnosis or whatever would, one, take you in the direction you've gone, but secondly, even in the practical element, maybe it actually takes your hands or your energy immediately towards those areas that you feel those blockages. So I suppose that has become a question. Do you find that in the work you do that you sort of immediately gravitate towards those areas that need clearing, or do you get direction from the quote unquote patient around that?
I think it's direction from the patient. So when you do Reiki, you start at the head area and work your way down. Right. And so when you feel, and it's actually like a heat in your hands, you can feel it. And so when you feel that heat sensation, there is a change in temperature within the hands and what you're feeling. So that is really what tells you, like, okay, this area is a little blocked. Okay. And that's how I know it myself when I do Reiki myself or with the children, and it kind of stops you, like, and I feel like that piece is almost like it's experiential. So you have to do it to realize what that feels like and to be really in tune to your own body. And that's why they say, like, people who do Reiki should get Reiki, because to keep your own energy clear. And to add, it's really important to go to someone who is trained, because if they're not in tune with their own energy, or maybe they're carrying on some bad stuff in their own body, that can affect yours as well. So it's good to go to someone who's pretty trained and recommended.
But do you feel like anybody could do this? Like, so if people in the audience are watching, I mean, maybe it's a natural type selection thing. I guess if you're interested in, it resonates with someone that they think I might like to go and do that, I guess then they can, rather than it just wouldn't appeal to them maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, we all don't have the same interest, right? So, I know people that are like, okay, this is really out there. This is woo-woo. Like, this is not the way my brain works, and that's fine. We're all different. we need diversity too. So those people probably wouldn't be as inclined to seek this out as much.
But there's nothing really stopping anybody apart from just their own interest and I guess the amount of work they put into do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as with everything. Cool.
So Chandra, do you see this as becoming a fairly major facet of your sort of overall ethos and so on? And of course, we always post your the various ways to either reach your material or engage and so on in our show more section anyway, because I know that you have a huge amount going on, and that this at the moment seems to be just another part of that. How central to your other work might this become, do you think?
Pretty essential, but I like to think of my work as kind of like spokes of a tire. And so I have all these spokes going out, but they all serve the same purpose. And one thing I'm working to build is that collective holistic treatment that is not necessarily psychotherapy, but more coaching bound for children and adolescents, and teaching the next generation this stuff. And the kids today are pretty receptive. Like, they get the energy piece, and they're starting to teach it to their parents, which is kind of cool. So with that being said, I feel like this is one piece. This is a piece, the mindset stuff is a piece, the full body congruence wraps into all of that. And then, obviously dietary is another piece of that too, which I'm getting to at some point.
Yeah, maybe you come back to talk about that as well. I'd love in the future if we maybe could talk about that empaths side of things, because I've never really quite understood what that is. Is it a talent? Is it something you develop, and all of those things? And I'd like to talk more about that. Yeah,
the curse.
There's a love,
it's a blessing
hate.
And a curse.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a love-hate sort of thing. Yeah. You love it at times, you think, wow, but then it can be overwhelming as well.
It can be, and that's why I think, especially for, you probably relate to this as well, is that Reiki piece and that energy clearing is so important to people that are a little more empathic, because when I was a kid, it caused a lot of anxiety because I didn't understand, and I felt like I was a little bit more ahead with this kind of stuff, but I didn't understand how to control it or how to compartmentalize it. So does that make sense? Is that...
Yes. Yeah, I think Gary's felt exactly the same. I know he's not one for hyperbole, but when he says it really means all of those things. I totally agree with you. Yes.
That's the throat chakra, you see, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
Still close.
Well, Chandra, look, I'm conscious of time as ever, and it's really good of you to give us that introduction and particularly to be so open. I didn't realise, as I said, that we'd go into that sort of emotional territory so quickly. So, thank you. And obviously this is incredibly important to you because it's been part of your healing process. And if you can then go on to share that with others, then that's a lovely thing. And I also wanted to say thank you to you for overcoming your slight thoughts, issues, worries, concerns over engaging on social media generally and in the digital matrix, and coming back and talking to us. So thank you for doing that too.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me back on the show too. It's always a pleasure speaking with both of you.
Likewise. Yeah, really nice of you to join. So I think for now, until the next time, from the Quantum Bridge, over and out. Thank you, Chandra.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.